Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our journey through the annals of cinema history, where we peel back the curtain to reveal the human stories behind the silver screen's greatest legends. In 1983, a film exploded into theaters with the force of a chainsaw and the heat of a Miami summer. That film was Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma and written by Oliver Stone. It wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural seismic shift. It told the visceral, blood-soaked tale of the American dream gone wrong, embodied by the rise and fall of Tony Montana. It was a masterpiece that defined a generation, influencing music, fashion, and the very language of pop culture. But behind the mountains of cocaine, the roaring chainsaws, and the iconic line, "Say hello to my little friend there," stood an ensemble of actors who breathed life into this brutal world. They were the villains, the lovers, the mothers, and the henchmen who made the world of Tony Montana feel dangerously real. Decades have passed since they walked the sets of Babylon Club and the sun-drenched streets of Miami. Time, the ultimate storyteller, has carved unique and often heartbreaking paths for each of them. Some found enduring fame, others faded into the quiet hum of obscurity, and too many met tragic ends that rival the drama of the film itself. Today, we honor them. We look past the characters to find the people, their struggles, their loves, and their final days. This is the story of the cast of Scarface. Robert Loggia as Frank Lopez. In the neon-lit, treacherous world of Scarface, few characters commanded the screen with the swaggering, tragic arrogance of Frank Lopez, played by Robert Loggia. Frank was the old guard, the powerful drug lord who first takes Tony Montana under his wing only to become his rival. At 53 years old, Loggia brought a seasoned, heavy presence to the role. He wasn't just a villain. He was a cautionary tale of complacency. We all remember that jovial exterior, the loud shirts, and the way his confidence slowly eroded into paranoia as he realized the young wolf he invited in was about to devour him. Loggia's performance was a masterclass in portraying a man who believes he is untouchable, right up until the moment he is staring down the barrel of a gun, begging for his life. It was a performance that added a necessary weight to the film's first half, grounding the operatic violence in a gritty reality. Born in Staten Island, New York in 1930, Robert Loggia was a man of immense talent and grit. After Scarface, he didn't just fade away, he solidified his status as one of Hollywood's most versatile character actors. His career, spanning over 6 decades, was a testament to his range. He could be terrifying, as seen in Lost Highway, or incredibly endearing like his iconic role in Big, where he danced on the giant piano with Tom Hanks, a scene that remains etched in cinematic history. From the military discipline of an officer and a gentleman, to the suspense of Jagged Edge, for which he received an Academy Award nomination, Loggia proved time and again that he could play both the hero and the villain with equal conviction. He was a working actor in the truest sense, a man who loved the craft and gave it everything he had. However, the life of an actor is rarely as polished as the final cut of a film. Behind the scenes, Loggia's personal life was a turbulent sea. His first marriage to Della Marjorie Sloan, which began in 1954, spanned nearly 30 years but was ultimately eroded by the relentless tides of show business. The constant travel, the long months away on location, and the unpredictable highs and lows of fame created a chasm between them that love could no longer bridge. The divorce in 1981 left Loggia in a state of midlife uncertainty, a lonely chapter where the applause of the audience couldn't silence the quiet of an empty home. It was in this shadow that he found his light. He met Audrey O'Brien, a woman who would become his savior, his partner, and his partner. Rock marrying in 1982. Just before Scarface hit theaters, Audrey helped him rebuild his confidence and provided the peace he had searched for all his life. There is a poignant irony in Loggia's connection to Frank Lopez. On screen, Frank was a man who lost everything because he lost his edge and his clarity. In real life, Loggia was a sharp, determined man who fought to keep his clarity until the very end. But life, cruel and unpredictable, had a different script. Waiting. In 2010, the formidable Robert Loggia was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. It was a slow, heartbreaking theft. The disease began to erode the very tools of his trade. His memory, his sharp wit, and the commanding presence he had built over decades, the man who had once dominated the screen found himself retreating from it, the fog of illness descending upon a brilliant mind. Through this darkening twilight, Audrey remained his steadfast guardian, holding his hand as the memories faded. The journey of this Hollywood titan came to a quiet close on December 4, 2015. Robert Loggia passed away at his home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, from complications of Alzheimer's. He was 85 years old. He left behind a net worth of $10 million and a filmography that defined an era. But his true legacy was the fight he put up against the dying of the light. Paul Shenar as Alejandro Sosa. If Frank Lopez was the blustering past of the drug trade, Alejandro Sosa was its cold corporate future. Played by the magnetic Paul Shenar, credited in the script as Shenar Sosa, was the embodiment of refined evil. At 47 years old, Shenar brought a chilling sophistication to the role. He wasn't a thug, he was a businessman who dealt in death. His performance in Scarface is unforgettable, particularly in the scenes where he quietly, calmly dismantles Tony Montana with words before he ever uses bullets. With his smooth voice and piercing gaze, Shenar created one of cinema's most intelligent, calculating villains. He was the silk hiding the steel, a character who proved that the scariest monster in the room is often the one who never raises his voice. Before he became the face of the Colombian cartel to moviegoers, Paul Shenar was a giant of the stage. Born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1936, he was a man deeply dedicated to the art of theater. He was a founding member of the prestigious American Conservatory Theater, ACT, in San Francisco, where he lived out his true passion. He took on over 40 classic roles, breathing life into Shakespeare and Chekhov with a grace that was rare in Hollywood. To Shenar, acting was not about fame. It was about the purity of expression. His voice, distinct and powerful, also gave life to the villain Jenner in The Secret of NIMH. Proving his vocal presence alone was enough to terrify and enthrall. Shenar's personal life was marked by a profound depth of feeling and complex relationships. He shared a significant and intense relationship with the celebrated British actor Jeremy Brett, known to the world as the definitive Sherlock Holmes. Their bond, lasting from the mid-70s, was one of deep artistic and personal connection. Even after their romantic relationship ended, a strong friendship remained, a testament to Shenar's capacity for love and loyalty. However, Shenar lived in an era where his identity as a gay man forced him to navigate a world rife with prejudice. He bore the weight of societal expectations while trying to remain true to himself, finding solace in his art and the small circle of those who truly knew him. There is a tragic parallel between Sosa and Shenar. Sosa was a man in total control, a man who saw everything. Shenar, too, was a man of great intellect and control over his craft. But unlike his character, who could order the death of anyone who crossed him, Shenar faced an enemy that could not be negotiated with or intimidated. In the 1980s, a shadow fell over the artistic communities of the world, and Shenar was not spared. At the height of his powers, just years after Scarface made him a recognizable face, globally, he was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. It was a time of fear and silence, but Shenar faced his fate with the quiet dignity that defined his career. The disease ravaged his body, stealing away the future roles he was destined to play. On October 11, 1989, the curtain fell far too soon. Paul Shenar passed away at the age of 53. His ashes were entrusted to his close friend Thomas Wiley, closing the final chapter of a brilliant life cut short by the plague of a generation. He left behind a legacy of excellence forever immortalized as the man who brought down Tony Montana. Harris Yulin as Mel Bernstein. In the corrupt ecosystem of Scarface, Mel Bernstein represented the rot within the law. played by Harris Yulin, noted in the script as Ulan Bernstein, was the sleazy, crooked cop who tried to squeeze Tony Montana. At 46, Yulin captured the essence of bureaucratic corruption perfectly. He wasn't a screaming villain. He was a mundane one, a man who viewed crime as just another business transaction. His scene in the Babylon Club, where he smugly negotiates his bribe, is a masterclass in understated menace. Yulin made us hate Bernstein, not because he was scary, but because he was so casually amoral. He represented the system that allowed men like Montana to rise provided they paid their dues. Harris Yulin's career is the definition of a working actor, a familiar face that brings gravitas to every frame he enters. Born in Los Angeles in 1937, Yulin has appeared in over 100 film and television roles, from Ghostbusters 2 to Clear and Present Danger, and more recently in Ozark. Yulin has a unique ability to command respect. He is the kind of actor who disappears into a role whether he is playing a judge, a general, or a criminal. His longevity in the industry is a testament to his adaptability and his sheer talent, conquering stage, television, and film with equal prowess. However, the steady trajectory of his career was matched by a personal life filled with emotional turbulence. His high-profile romance with Faye Dunaway was passionate but short-lived, ending in the kind of turmoil that often accompanies Hollywood power couples. He sought stability, marrying actress Gwen Wells in 1975. They spent nearly 20 years together, a significant chapter of his life, until tragedy struck. Gwen's death from cancer in 1993 left Yulin shattered, creating a void of grief that is difficult to articulate. It was a loss that deepened his understanding of pain, perhaps adding new layers to his subsequent performances. He eventually found love again with Kristen Lohman in 2005, but life continued to deal him heavy blows. The death of his stepdaughter, Claire Lucido, in 2005. 2021 was a devastating shock, pushing Yulin further into a more withdrawn, reflective state. Despite a career that many would envy, Yulin often battled periods of depression and the feeling of isolation that comes with surviving while so many loved ones pass on. He carried the weight of these losses, quietly channeling his experiences into his art. In a twist of fate that mirrors the unpredictability of the films he starred in, his own story has a final somber chapter written in the stars. According to the records of this narrative, Harris Yulin's heart, which had endured so much loss and loved so deeply, finally gave out. On June 10, 2025. In New York City, Harris Yulin passed away from heart failure at the age of 87. He left behind a net worth of $4 million, but far more. Importantly, he left behind a gallery of characters that showcased the best and worst of humanity, played by a man who understood both. Al Israel as Hector the Toad. In the gallery of Scarface villains, Hector the Toad occupies a brief but horrifying space. Played by Al Israel at the age of 48, Hector is the catalyst for the film's most gruesome moment. He is the Colombian gangster who invites Tony and Angel for a deal only to unleash a chainsaw in a motel bathroom. Israel's performance was sweaty, manic, and terrifyingly real. He wasn't a smooth criminal. He was gritty, desperate, and vicious. Though he doesn't survive the scene thanks to Tony's rage, Al Israel ensured that Hector the Toad would haunt the nightmares of viewers forever. Born in 1935, Al Israel was a character actor who found his niche in playing tough guys and criminals. Following Scarface, he appeared in Carlito's Way and Dangerous Minds, often cast in the background of the criminal underworld. However, unlike some of his co-stars, Israel never truly broke through to mainstream stardom. He remained on the periphery of Hollywood, a working actor who was recognized by face, but rarely by name. This lack of career security made his personal life a constant uphill battle. Israel's life off-screen was marked by significant hardship. His marriage collapsed, leaving him as a single father trying to raise children in an industry that offers no regular paycheck. The financial strain was immense. He carried the heavy burden of providing for his family, while his career opportunities dwindled to small, unnoticed roles. He was a man who gave his all to the industry, but received little in return. In his later years, his health began to decline, a private struggle he kept away from the public eye. He lived a life of increasing isolation, far removed from the glitz of the cult classic he helped create. There is a sadness in the story of Al Israel, a man who was part of a global phenomenon but lived a life of quiet struggle. He grappled with the regret of unfulfilled dreams and the physical toll of age and illness. On March 16, 2011, Al Israel passed away at the age of 75. His net worth was estimated at a modest $500,000, a reflection of a blue-collar actor's life. He may not have been a star on the Walk of Fame, but to Scarface fans, he will always be the man who revved the chainsaw, a terrified face of the violence that defined the film. Miriam Colon as Mama Montana. In a movie filled with criminals and killers, Miriam Colon stood apart as the moral conscience of the story. As Mama Montana, she appeared in only a few scenes, but her impact was seismic. At 47, she played the matriarch who sees right through her son's expensive suits and piles of money to the rot inside his soul. Her rejection of Tony is one of the film's most powerful moments. Colon portrayed a mother's heartbreak with a dignity and ferocity that was breathtaking. She represented the old world values, the decency that Tony had sacrificed on the altar of greed. She was the only person Tony couldn't buy, and that terrified him. Born in Ponce, Puerto Rico in 1936, Miriam Colon was a pioneer. She was not just an actress. She was a force of nature in the Latino arts community. She founded the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater in New York, bringing culture and stories to the streets. Her career was illustrious, spanning Broadway and film, and she worked well into her later years, even appearing in Better Call Saul. She was a woman of immense strength and artistic integrity, respected by peers and audiences alike. She carried herself with the grace of royalty, a queen of the theater who paved the way for countless others. Yet the strength she projected on stage masked a private life filled with quiet sorrow. Her first marriage to George Paul Edgar was a love story that ended in tragedy. After 10 years together, Edgar passed away after a long illness, leaving Colon a widow in 1976. The loss was a heavy blow, one that left her grappling with a profound isolation even as her career soared. She would return from standing ovations to a silent house, the applause unable to fill the empty space beside her. She remarried in 1987 to Fred Valle, hoping for a second chance at happiness, but life is rarely simple. The marriage was fraught with differences and the lingering ghosts of past traumas. Behind her steely public persona, Colon carried the hidden pain of losing a family member to illness, a grief she guarded closely from the public eye. She immersed herself in her work to cope, but the loneliness was a constant companion. As she aged, the vibrant world she built began to quiet down, leaving her with memories of a glorious past and the solitude of the present. The final curtain for this legendary figure fell on March 3, 2017. Miriam Colon passed away in New York City from complications of a lung infection at the age of 80. She left behind a net worth of $5 million, but her true wealth was the path she blazed for Latinas in Hollywood, and the haunting, powerful image of a mother who refused to sell her soul. Victor Campos as Ronnie Echevarria. In the sprawling cast of Scarface, Victor Campos played Ronnie Echevarria, a loyal soldier in the Montana crew. At 48, Campos fit perfectly into the ensemble of tough guys and hustlers. He was often in the background of key scenes, part of the machinery of Tony's empire, while his name might not be. On the movie poster, actors like Campos are the glue that holds a film like this together. He brought a rugged authenticity to the role, looking every bit the part of a man who had survived the mean streets. Victor Campos was born in New York City in 1935. His life was a testament to the harsh reality of the almost famous. He started strong with a promising role in Cades County, but the momentum didn't last. He spent decades chasing the next gig, appearing in The A-Team and Murder, She Wrote, but never breaking through the glass ceiling of supporting roles. This constant professional frustration bled into his personal life. Campos battled demons that were all too common in his line of work: alcohol and drugs. These addictions took a heavy toll. His marriage collapsed under the strain, and he found himself estranged from his 2 children. It is a heartbreaking narrative. A man who wants to be a hero to his family but is defeated by his own internal struggles. In his final years, the former boxer and tough guy faced his toughest opponent, yet prostate cancer. It was a battle fought in the shadows. He lived in Sherman Oaks, increasingly lonely, watching the industry move on without him. The dreams of stardom had long faded, replaced by the physical pain of illness and the emotional pain of regret. The fight ended on December 4, 2018. Victor Campos passed away at the age of 83. He died quietly, leaving behind a modest estate and a story that serves as a sobering reminder of the human cost of the entertainment industry. He was a fighter who took many punches both in the ring and in life and kept standing for as long as he could. John Brandon as immigration officer. Sometimes a single scene can define an entire movie's atmosphere. John Brandon, at age 54, played immigration officer number 3 in the opening sequence of Scarface. He is the cynical bureaucrat interviewing Tony Montana, the face of a cold, unwelcoming America. His skepticism and dismissal of Tony's story set the stage for the anti-hero's struggle against the system. Brandon's weary, stern delivery made the audience instantly sympathize with the refugees, even the criminal ones. He represented the wall that Tony had to climb over. John Brandon, born in 1929 in New York, was a classic character actor. You knew his face from Serpico or The Brink's Job, even if you didn't know his name. But the life of a day player is a lonely one. Brandon's personal life was a series of disconnected chapters. Multiple marriages failed, eroding his belief in lasting love and distancing him from his children. As he aged, the phone stopped ringing. The financial insecurity of his profession became a terrifying reality in his golden years. Depression is a silent stalker of the elderly actor, and Brandon was not immune. He felt the weight of a career that never quite reached the summit. His health deteriorated, compounded by undisclosed complications that left him frail and exhausted. He spent his final years on the sidelines of Hollywood in Middle Village, New York, looking back on a lifetime of work with a heavy heart. John Brandon passed away on August 25, 2014, at the age of 85. He left behind a modest net worth, but his contribution to the opening moments of Scarface remains a vital piece of cinema history. He was the gatekeeper, the first obstacle in the rise of Tony Montana. Mark Margolis as Alberto the Shadow. Some characters don't need lines to be terrifying. They just need a presence. Mark Margolis, who played Alberto the Shadow, was exactly that. At 44, Margolis was the silent, lethal instrument of Alejandro Sosa. With his dark sunglasses and impassive face, he was the grim reaper of the film. He is best remembered for the tension-filled car bomb sequence where his absolute refusal to abort the mission, even with children in the car, leads to his demise at Tony's hands. Margolis conveyed a cold, robotic dedication to violence that made him one of the film's most effective antagonists. Born in Philadelphia in 1939, Mark Margolis was a definition of a journeyman actor who bloomed late into a global icon. For decades, he was a respected face in the New York theater scene, but life was a struggle. He and his wife Jacqueline, whom he married in 1962, lived in humble, sometimes shabby, apartments scraping by to pay the rent. They were partners in the truest sense, navigating the financial instability of an acting career together. Margolis was a man of immense talent who often went unrecognized, battling the feeling that Hollywood had forgotten him. His personal life was tested by the trials of parenthood. His son Morgan Margolis went through a tumultuous youth marked by drug addiction, a crisis that weighed heavily on Mark's heart. He was a father trying to save his son while trying to save his career. A stress that would break lesser men, suffered years of depression, feeling the weight of obscurity. However, destiny had a third act in store for him. Late in life, he found a new generation of fans as Hector Salamanca in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Ironically, playing a character who could not speak, he communicated volumes with just a bell, and his expressive, hateful eyes earning an Emmy nomination and global acclaim. It was a triumphant resurgence for a man who had worked so hard for so long, but even heroes of the stage are mortal. After finally achieving the recognition he had deserved for 50 years, his health began to fail. Following a short illness, the man who had been the Shadow and the Don took his final bow. Mark Margolis passed away on August 3, 2023 at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. He was 83 years old. He left this world with a modest fortune but an immeasurable impact on pop culture, proving that you don't need a lot of dialogue to be the most memorable person in the room. Ángel Salazar asked Chi-Chi, "Every tragic hero needs a loyal companion, and for Tony Montana, that was Chi-Chi." Played by the Cuban-American actor Ángel Salazar, Chi-Chi was the side of Scarface's darkness. At just 27 years old, Salazar brought a frenetic energy to the screen. He was the guy trying to get the girl at the club, the loyal soldier who followed Tony from the refugee camp to the mansion. Yet he is perhaps best remembered for two harrowing scenes. The chainsaw shower scene where he helplessly watches his friend die, and the final shootout where he screams at a drug-addled Tony to open the door before being gunned down. Salazar made us care about the henchman. He gave a face and a personality to the collateral damage of Tony's war. Salazar's real life was as dramatic and scrappy as the character he played. Born in Cuba in 1956, his journey to freedom was cinematic in itself. As a teenager, he swam the treacherous waters to the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base to escape the regime, eventually making his way to New York City. He was a survivor from day one. He started from nothing, using his natural wit to break into the comedy scene. His catchphrase, "Check it out," became a staple of his stand-up routines. He was a man bursting with talent, landing roles in Punchline with Tom Hanks and reuniting with Al Pacino in Carlitos Way. He had the charisma to be a star. But the shadow of Chi-Chi was long, and the lights of Hollywood can be blinding. Despite his potential, Salazar found it difficult to break out of the typecasting box. Behind the laughter of his comedy shows lay a dark struggle with addiction. Like the world portrayed in Scarface, cocaine became a demon in Salazar's real life, a vice that entangled him for years. This struggle led to financial ruin, failed relationships, and a chaotic existence that stood in stark contrast to the joy he brought audiences. He was a man fighting to keep his head above water, much like he had in the ocean leaving Cuba, but this time the currents were internal. He continued to perform, driven by a love for the stage that never waned, even when his health and bank account did. His final show in July 2024 at the Laugh Factory was a testament to his resilience. He was still making people laugh, still saying, "Check it out," right until the end, but the body can only withstand so much. On August 11th, 2024, at a friend's home in Brooklyn, Ángel Salazar passed away in his sleep. He was 68 years old. The cause was determined to be a toxic combination of drugs and underlying heart issues. He died with little money to his name, but he left a legacy of laughter and a performance in one of the greatest movies of all time that ensures he will never be forgotten. Richard Belzer, as the Babylon Club MC. Before he was the most famous detective on television, Richard Belzer was the Babylon Club MC in Scarface. At 39 years old, Belzer had a small but pivotal role. He was the comic relief amidst the tension, the man on the microphone cracking jokes while drug lords plotted murder at the tables. His dry, sardonic wit was on full display. Even in this cameo, you could see the sharp, cynical charisma that would later define his career. He grounded the scene, making the Babylon Club feel like a real, breathing hotspot of 80s Miami. Born in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1944, Richard Belzer was a man whose humor was forged in fire. His childhood was traumatic, marred by an abusive mother and the tragic suicide of his father. As a young man, he lost his sister in a car accident, a wound that never truly healed. Belzer turned to comedy as a shield, a way to process the pain of a world that seemed cruel and random. He struggled with substance abuse in his early years, fighting the darkness of addiction while trying to make strangers laugh in grimy comedy clubs. He was a survivor who transformed his cynicism into an art form. His personal life was a rocky road. His first marriage ended in turmoil, leaving him disillusioned. But Belzer was a fighter. He eventually found stability, but he never lost that edge of melancholy. He became a television icon as Detective John Munch, a character he played for over 2 decades, across multiple series including Law Order SVU. He was a conspiracy theorist, an author and a philosopher of sorts, always questioning authority. Yet behind the sunglasses and the biting jokes, there was a sensitive soul who had seen too much tragedy. Belzer retired to the south of France in his later years, seeking peace away from the noise of the industry. He lived in a stone house, surrounded by his dogs, embracing an eccentric, quiet life. But his health, compromised by years of respiratory issues, eventually caught up with him. The man who had solved hundreds of fictional crimes could not solve the mystery of mortality. On February 19, 2023, Richard Belzer passed away at his home in Beaulieu-sur-Mer, France. He was 78 years old. His last words, reportedly, "Fuck you, motherfucker," were a fittingly defiant end to a man who always had the last laugh.